Public policy encompasses all the decisions, laws, and active programs a government undertakes to address the structural challenges of society. It is the practical machinery of state action. There is a common assumption that public policy is issued from the top down by a single monolithic institution. The reality of a democratic state is far more complex. To understand exactly how public policy is actually generated, we have to violently fracture this idea of a singular authority. In India, the policy process is driven by three distinct constitutional actors: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. This diagram illustrates the core process. Public policy is an emergent output generated by the continuous interaction, structural overlap, and enforced cooperation of these three organs of government. Modern democratic systems require this exact separation. Concentrating excessive authority in any single institution threatens individual liberty and invites authoritarianism. To prevent this, the Constitution establishes a strict framework of checks and balances. Each institution operates with independent powers, yet simultaneously possesses the specific authority to restrain the others. To see how this engine works, we are going to simulate the mechanics of the system. We will build the state apparatus, node by node, and trace exactly how policy is formed. This deliberate institutional tension, the required friction between creating, funding, and reviewing a law, is exactly what guarantees transparent and accountable governments. The first node is the executive. Its primary responsibility is administering the country and implementing the laws on a daily basis. This is where policy formulation begins. Government ministries identify public problems and begin aggressive research. They analyze data, commission policy studies, and consult experts to draft concrete proposals. Working across various departments, the executive must determine the priorities of the state. They balance immediate political and social considerations to decide whether to focus national efforts on economic development, healthcare, or national security. Once a law is authorized, the executive shifts to policy implementation. This requires establishing administrative agencies, recruiting personnel, and delivering public services on the ground. Implementation requires massive resource allocation. The executive is responsible for preparing national budgets and actively allocating funds across development programs, often collaborating with private and international agencies. The administrative cycle then requires the executive to continuously monitor its own programs. Departments evaluate their efficiency and public response, adjusting tactics and communicating their actions to the citizenry to maintain public awareness. Beyond domestic administration, the executive possesses two distinct specializations. It coordinates relief measures and provides direct leadership during national crises like pandemics or natural disasters, and it independently negotiates treaties to shape the nation's foreign policy. Ultimately, the executive is the proactive engine. It takes abstract legislative intent and converts it into the practical, funded programs that directly impact daily life. The second node is the legislature. This is the lawmaking institution that provides the legal framework for every government action. While the executive identifies problems and proposes solutions, those proposals must survive this chamber. The legislature thoroughly debates and modifies proposed bills before passing them into formal, enforceable law. Once laws are passed, the legislature enforces accountability through rigorous oversight. By demanding answers to parliamentary questions, conducting committee investigations, and reviewing audit reports, legislators force the executive to justify its administrative actions. As this flowchart illustrates, the legislature holds the ultimate systemic choke point: budget approval. No matter what the executive plans, public expenditure cannot take place without legislative consent. Legislators use this strict control over national finances to negotiate how resources are distributed, balancing the competing demands of different social, economic, and regional groups. The legislature also acts as a mechanism for reform. By gathering public feedback and reviewing older statutes, legislators draft necessary amendments to align the legal code with changing societal needs. The absolute mandate for this power comes from the public. Legislators carry the exact concerns and aspirations of diverse constituencies directly into the policymaking process. The legislature acts as the primary regulator of the state apparatus. It enforces democratic consent and strict financial limits, ensuring the executive engine remains tethered to the public will. The third and final node is the judiciary. It acts as the ultimate protector of the Constitution. ensuring that all implemented policies remain lawful, fair, and just. Its most powerful mechanic is judicial review. Courts have the authority to examine whether the laws passed by the legislature or the actions taken by the executive actually conform to constitutional limits. If a policy violates constitutional provisions, the courts possess the strict authority to strike it down, safeguarding citizens' fundamental rights, like equality, freedom, and privacy, from government overreach. Beyond constitutional review, courts also supervise administrative agencies. They act as a check on daily governance, ensuring that executive decisions remain transparent, reasonable, and consistent with existing administrative law. The impact of this judicial power is visible in landmark rulings. Take the 1973 case Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala. This ruling established the basic structure doctrine. The judiciary drew an absolute boundary, protecting the fundamental framework of the Constitution from ever being altered or destroyed by legislative amendment. Similarly, in the 1978 case Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India, the Supreme Court expanded the interpretation of Article 21. This severely strengthened the protection of personal liberty and mandated strict due process against state action. Courts generally do not write policy themselves. However, by striking down bad law and defining civil rights, they apply pressure that forces the legislature to enact new constitutional reforms. By nullifying unconstitutional outputs and resolving structural disputes, the judiciary acts as the system's ultimate failsafe, stabilizing the entire state architecture. Now we can bring the nodes together and view this dynamic equilibrium in motion. When a raw public problem surfaces in society, it enters this tripartite engine. The executive node processes the data, relies on expert analysis, and formulates a specific, targeted solution. That solution is immediately subjected to the friction of the legislature, where it is scrutinized, debated, and modified against strict funding constraints and public demands. Finally, the resulting law passes through the judiciary's containment field, audited to ensure it aligns perfectly with the constitutional framework before it is deployed back into society. The hurdles and the judicial reviews are intentional structural features. They provide the necessary friction to protect the integrity of the state and prevent hasty, unlawful action. This overlapping architecture ensures no single branch can dictate terms. Institutional checks force the state to resolve structural conflicts peacefully and legally. Effective governance rests on a resilient, durable institutional architecture. This framework ensures that policy decisions remain grounded in constitutional standards, even through shifting political tides. Ultimately, it is only through the harmonious and interdependent functioning of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary that a state can sustain democratic accountability, enforce the rule of law, and achieve inclusive national development.